I was very impressed. I did my bachelor thesis actually in human sweat, so that's why I was very delighted to hear about this also. But more about you. Could you tell us a bit about how you became a researcher and what your academic career, what it was?
So I always wanted to work in animal behaviour from when I was about 10, and it was reading a popular book by Nico Timberg that persuaded me that's what I wanted to do. And I've just been very lucky that I was able to do zoology, do a PhD in animal behaviour on beetles and parental care. But then I couldn't get a job because there was not much interest in that narrow field. But pheromones are economically very important because moths in the caterpillar stage are major pests of crops. And so there's been a lot of interest in moth pheromones, and also a lot of fundamental and interesting work on how these evolve. So I was drawn into pheromone research by the moths. And then in the mid-90s, I was approached by a commissioning editor for Cambridge University Press who wanted a book on pheromones. And I said I would love to do one on insect pheromones, but they were more interested in a book that would sell. And so they wanted the whole animal kingdom. And that's when I became interested in fish pheromones, bird pheromones, if they exist, human pheromones, right the way across the animal kingdom. And it was that book that really has drawn me into the wider world of pheromones. And what I've discovered is I'm actually a better writer than experimenter. So that's what I do now. I synthesize, I read widely, and I look for the parallels and the differences across the animal kingdom.
That's great. Do you have like a current project that you're working on?
Well, I'm interested in the whole human story, and I think we might have pheromones, but none have been found. This mammary pheromone, with an indication discovered by this French group, is really intriguing. Now, I'm going to let them do the research, but I am interested. I'm a bit skeptical about some of the pheromones for domestic animals, companion animals, but that's another story. But I think what I want to do is get these ideas out to a wider audience, and as with the theme of my talk, I'm actually very interested in how we make science more reproducible. There's too much that sounds good, but actually isn't justified.
Yes, of course. And how do you stand on statistics being a major problem in publications, that many statistics are biased or just...
I think it's more the way that people have what's been termed infinite researcher degrees of freedom. So a way of doing research has grown up, and pretty well everybody does it if you ask them anonymously. Basically, unconsciously looks for results that fit their anticipation. And probably the only way of stopping that is some kind of pre-registration. Peeking at data before the study is finished is very common, and people don't even think of that as interference. So the problem is that people don't see that as causing a problem, but it greatly increases the chance of false positives. And a scientist, an experimental psychologist called Dorothy Bishop, has done some really interesting modelling showing that with completely random data, if you peek and change the analysis in those subtle ways, you can end up more times than not getting a significant result, even though the data has been set up to be completely random with no effect whatsoever. So these things really do matter, but it means changing the whole way that we do science.
Because if there is control, then there's no possibility to change the data.
It's more than having a control. All of the studies that I've mentioned had a control. The difference is saying ahead of the study how you will analyse it and at what number you will stop the study.
Yeah, and the transparency of it.
It's basically the transparency, and also distinguishing between exploratory and confirmatory research, something I didn't mention in the talk, but is actually very important. And the problem with the literature is that lots of exploratory, let's have a look kind of experiments are presented as if they were what the experimenter was actually meaning all along, and in fact they weren't.
Yeah, so it's all modeled. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And the last question is a bit of a funny one, because our conference is about mostly animal behavior. So the question is, if you could choose to be a different species than you are, what species would you choose?
So I'd love to be a male moth with amazing feathery antennae
Yes.
and flying at night across great distances looking for the female. And it's an amazing animal.
That's amazing, because it fits your talk and your vest.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the talk, and have a nice time here.
I'm already enjoying it. Thank you.